I'm not going to stand there preaching to anyone. This is me just chatting, and I want it to at least leave half an hour for some interaction so that we're having a conversation. It's not just me preaching. Any questions are open. I'm not a politician, so you can ask anything you want. If I can't answer it, I can't answer it. It's going to be a little bit of a different talk regarding health than probably many people have listened to. It's going to be about what Patrick calls the energetic exchanges of life. So I just want to go through a few things at the moment before we get started. So I've been working with a chap called Patrick Quanton since 2014. He was a medical doctor for about 20 years, and he walked out in about 2000. And he was, as far as I know, the only person to successfully strike himself off the medical register. It was the only way he could free himself from their control and start investigating life, by striking himself off. And that way, he had no fallback. So he only could pursue truth then, and things will be how they will be. I come across... Obviously, we've all got our own stories. I'm not going to bore you with my story, but just a quick fly through. I travelled quite a bit. To cut a long story short, I went to New York for a week in September 1998 and come back in 2000, the year 2000, September, coming back from Lima, Peru. So a week break lasted about a couple of years. But what you're doing when you're young, you're absorbing experiences and information, and they're going in there, but you're too busy enjoying yourself that you haven't got time to process it. So when I got married and you have kids, then your life settles down and you start to processing. What was blatantly obvious to me is that there's incredible power in big corporations supported by governments in the world. And I thought I had a reasonable understanding of what was going on in the world until the 2008 financial crash, when I had politicians and economists telling me 2 + 2 is 5. Now, even in the quantum world, I'm telling you now, 2 + 2 is 4. It may be a possibility as 5, but it can't manifest as 5. 2 + 2 is 4. So when people are telling me this, I think, right, you're lying to me. I need to find out what's going on. So that's when I discovered money creation in 2009, because I was investigating the monetary system and I come across how money is created. And I had a massive download of information that connected the monetary system to all systems in life. But it wasn't till 2011 that I questioned the medical system, because the information they give you makes you think modern medicine is this miracle that saved us from disease. In early 2011, in alternative television, I saw an interview with a medical biochemist called Trevor Gunn. And inside all of us, we know what truth is. Yeah, we know it when we hear it. And he said something really simple. Allopathy looks at the response by the body as a defect, something gone wrong. Whereas, should we say, natural holistic thinking looks at what is the body trying to achieve via that expression. And he said something blatantly obvious. If you've got diarrhea, you don't need to know why, but obviously the body's trying to get rid of some waste or toxins. Why on earth would you take Imodium? How nonsensical and ridiculous is that? And I thought, this guy is the first guy ever to tell me some common sense truth ever regarding health. And he put up the vaccine data, etc. I immediately bought the book, which is, if you look at my information list, that's basically what me and Patrick do. But on the back, I put some other books that aren't of mine. They're not my books. Trevor Gunn is the first one there. The initial book was called Soma Wisdom, The Science of Health and Healing. But then he republished it, Just the Science of Health and Healing. So I read that about 6 times to rewire my brain. And you can come to, I'm not telling anyone what to think, but allopathy, you say, the body has malfunctioned, I need to stop what it's doing because it's painful or whatever. Holistic natural thinking says, what is my body trying to achieve in this process? So illness is either a thing in allopathy or it's a process if you have a natural way of thinking. I'm not telling you what the truth is, I'm just telling you these are options and this is what I believe the truth is. And there's other books there that I would recommend personally to buy if you want. The Biology of Belief, we're going to go into that a little bit tonight. That's what this chart is about. Nature Cure by Henry Lindlar. So when I was looking into this, I thought, well, what were people saying at the time of infectious disease and vaccine programs? So Henry Lindlar wrote this book in 1914. And again, he's saying what pretty much I'm going to say now. This knowledge has been around for a long time. But one significant piece of information in the book was another doctor that he knew went around the world traveling for a year. And you've got to remember, this is 120 years ago or so. And wherever he went into tribal or simple people living out of modern society, away from medical doctors, importantly, there was no chronic disease. None. No cancer, no chronic disease. You have acute, I'm not going to call it illness, acute healing crises, and you can either live or die by that. But he never found chronic disease. I'm going to try and explain to you why tonight as part of that. But we're actually going to go deeper, because when I looked into the monetary system, the obvious question came about, what is money? Where does it come from? How does it function? They're my opinion, they're the three, when you want to investigate anything, regarding what it is, what actually is it? Can you define what you're looking at? Where does it actually come from, money? How does it function? I use the same criteria to look into bacteria. What is a bacteria? Where do they come from? How do they function? They're the three basic questions. Then you have to go deeper. And so in 2014, I'd been collating information on vaccination and infectious disease, and the UK column wanted to interview me regarding my research. And I said, to be honest, it's not a good idea, because I've never been to college, I clean windows for a living, who's going to give me credibility? But I'd been subscribing to the Informed Parent. I've got a few of their last editions there for free. There's a few freebies there. And in the Informed Parent, there was this former doctor called Patrick Quanton who was writing articles that corroborated what Trevor Gunn was saying in his book and what my research was saying. So I contacted Patrick and said, listen, you know, can I interview you? He lives in Belgium at the time, but I knew he visited England. So we arranged to do an interview regarding what people call germ theory and vaccination. With the UK column, we did it, and you can actually, for some reason, still find it on YouTube. It's on the link there. But in the interview, he was talking about these energetic interactions, and I wasn't at that level yet. I'd read Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief, but Patrick's talking about energetic interactions. And so I kept inviting him over every year or so to Cornwall to do seminars on different aspects of health, and every time pushing the boundaries to push it more and more to understand these energetic interactions. And we thought we'd completed our work. And then about 2 years ago, we did a seminar with him. I said, listen, Patrick's kind of retired now as a peasant farmer in the mountains of Spain, and he's kind of doing his own thing, which I'm going to come to in a minute. But I said, I want you to come back over because I think we need to put this down as a foundation. It's in the books, but I want to do it as a seminar, and recorded it, which we did, which again, you'll find on the information leaflet for free. A 4.5 hour seminar, regarding what is this energy? What is this energetic interaction? And even that 5-hour seminar wasn't enough, so I created a 13-part series after that to go even more into that. And then we stopped at 13 parts because you could literally go on forever. And what happens when you go into the details, you lose your foundation and you get lost in the details. This is exactly how economics works. They want you lost in the details, and this is exactly how the medical systems works. They want you lost in the details. So tonight I'm going to talk about the foundation. So what is it? Where does it come from? How does it function? I'm going to talk about life and the human existence. What is life? Where does it come from? How does it function in the sense of a human being? So I'm putting kind of Patrick's research into my own perspective. So we're told we live in this physical universe of time and space, but the problem of infinity is, how can that be? Because what's beyond the universe? Well, it's a wood or it's a brick wall. Yeah, but what's beyond that? Oh, there's a barrier. Yeah, but what's beyond that? You go on forever. It doesn't make any sense. So you have to start explaining time and space. If we go back to what we call the Big Bang, the moment of creation, you can see that as a moment before time and space. And so you've got what they call a primordial energy soup, which is pure potential, pure energetic potential, where the two forces of nature, expansion and contraction, are held in perfect symmetry, perfect balance. Therefore, there's no time, no space, no movement. But even they tell us perfect balance cannot really exist because it will create tension. Now, we all have our own illustrations. The illustration I got from science was, if you imagine a ball, a perfect sphere, which is the perfect balanced shape, at the top of a hill or a point, it cannot stay there forever. There's inbuilt instability because of the need to expand and the need to contract. That point of balance, the way I look at it is, if you think of an archer, he's contracting. The instrument wants to expand. There's a moment when the archer, there's no movement. But if you observe it and if you feel it, there's tension. These are what you could say sub-quantum fluctuations, I think they call them. So it's not exactly movement, but it's tension. It's that balance between expansion and contraction that wants to manifest. So we have this primordial soup of energy that's in perfect balance, but it can't stay in balance. And you have these little fluctuations that are coming together pre-manifestation that can form a condensed part of the primordial energetic soup that we could say is a seed. It's creating a seed of a universe. Now, if you take an acorn, for example, it's a seed. Within the acorn, there is no time and no space. Yeah, because there's no movement. Without movement, you cannot have time and space. So the acorn has within it information to create the tree, the oak tree. But it's not manifest yet. It needs stimulating. It needs to manifest. The acorn can only produce an oak tree. It cannot produce a birch tree. It cannot produce a rose bush. It can only produce an oak tree because that information inside it that is held in perfect balance, that's all it can produce. To sprout out, shall we say, the acorn needs moisture, it needs heat, sunshine, etc. It needs to be stimulated out of its balance from the environment. So even though this primordial soup, we're saying, isn't an environment of time and space, it's beyond that threshold. So there's a threshold, they say the Planck measurement is the smallest thing we can measure in the universe. that could well be, I'm guessing here, the boundary between manifestation and potential. And beyond that is these fluctuations, and beyond that is manifestation. So even though this seed now that has contracted, it's still in an environment, and it's still being influenced by the environment to the point where now it can no longer contain its perfect symmetry, its equilibrium. It cannot contain it, and it sprouts open. So you don't have to see the Big Bang as a violent explosion. You could see it as a sprouting of potential that has been held in place. So the only two forces we have are expansion and contraction. That's it. So the universe sprouted out, and scientists have estimated it took maybe 300,000-400,000 years before any atoms were created, because expansion was in control and heat. Expansion and velocity creates heat. Contraction and slowing down will be cold. So you got temperature and pressure, expansion, contraction, heat and coldness. They're the forces that create the universe and everything in it. So after so many years, should we say, for want of a better word, gravity was able to get a little bit of grip of this expansion. So you've got electromagnetic energy that goes out and gravity that comes in. We don't have to go into the details of what that is, because who knows what gravity actually is? How can you define it? What is electromagnetism? Well, some clever people can explain it. I just know it's energy that goes out, and gravity is energy that comes in. If it's just continually going out, you cannot create anything, because nothing can come together. So you need that opposing force to start to bring energy fields together. And eventually you can create what they call an atom, which is just an energetic field that has been able to hold itself together through the balance of contraction and expansion. So now, eventually after time, atoms can come together and create molecules. So again, this is a bigger expression of how expansion and contraction can be held. You could say it's almost like the universe is starting to build itself based on the information that was in the seed. An acorn can only become an oak tree. Whatever information was in the original seed of this universe will manifest itself, and it can only be that way. Because of many influences, every acorn doesn't go into the same oak tree. So there's variation, there's a little bit of free will, shall we say, depending on different influences. This universe is going somewhere, and it will end somewhere. But there will be variation within that isn't fixed. But it does have boundaries. An oak tree will never form into a birch tree. This universe, wherever it's going, is going somewhere with certain boundaries and limitations, regardless of what we think. So you have the formation of molecules. Atoms can absorb more pressure from the environment, information, energy. And then we have molecules that can absorb more pressure, information, and hold it. But this is all driven by cause and effect. It can be explained by physics. Just pure cause and effect. Eventually we get galaxies, solar systems that are being created that were meant to be created. They're just random things. They have to be in the information in the seed. Eventually we come to a different form of life that we call cellular life. This is the first point where we have a thing, shall we say, that sees itself as a separate entity to the universe. A cell can absorb masses of more pressure from the environment, which is information, which is energy, than a molecule or an atom. It's got a bigger structure. You could say, again, with its membrane that separates it now from the world, and it's feeding off information in the world, this is kind of cause and effect, but it goes beyond that. Because now this is an individual cell that has information with it that relates to its own relationship with the environment, which is to keep its own homeostasis and keep its own balance. It'll receive information from the environment, process it, and respond to it in a way that keeps itself in balance. You could say this is awareness. It's beyond cause and effect. It's a form of cause and effect, but it's slightly beyond cause and effect now, and we're calling this awareness. But we're not calling it conscious awareness. There's a lot of people who don't define the words. They talk about cause and effect, awareness, consciousness. But there are nuances and differences that you'll find. And if you don't explain the differences, we're basically having two different conversations. And this is why the theme of this talk is defining health. Because we might disagree on health, but we might be having two different conversations based on our definitions. So the official definitions don't matter. It's what is your definition, what is my definition, so we can at least have the same conversation. So now we've got this cell, which is exchanging information with the environment to keep its balance. We know there's some form of intelligence and awareness there, because you can show that cells will go away from toxicity in the environment, but they will be attracted to what they see as nutrition. So there's some form of intelligence there and some form of awareness, but it's not conscious awareness. Then we have cells coming together to create multicellular organisms. So here I'm talking about what we would call evolution, but this isn't Darwinian evolution I'm talking about. It'll become clearer later on. I'm talking about an energetic evolution. What I call the evolution of consciousness. And then we get to different layers of animals, different expressions of this multicellular level, until we get to mammals. And mammals, you can start to see a little bit of what we would call feelings, emotions, possible conscious awareness, not on the level of humans at all. But you can start to see the building of that consciousness through mammals. And primates would be the highest level of that in that era. But human beings are now on another level. We've left the primates. And I'm not telling anybody my great, etc. grandmother was an ape in a tree. What Patrick's saying, and I have to go along with it, not because he said it, because I've studied this and I go along with what he's saying. There's an energetic connection in the energy field. It's not necessarily a physical one. So now we come to human beings, and what we're saying, we're consciously aware. We're conscious of our awareness. A cell isn't conscious that it's an individual self. It's aware, but it's not conscious about it. We are consciously aware that we are who we are. We feel separate to everything. We're a separate entity in the whole, and we're conscious of that. So consciousness, a very difficult word to be defined, is the awareness, the conscious awareness of being a self, of this interaction with the environment. Again, it's a very difficult word to define, but that's what we're talking about. Human beings, now I would say in relation to our evolution, we're at a teenage stage. So what do teenagers do? They reject everything the mother's been telling them, and the father, you don't know nothing, you don't know how the world is, I'm going to do it my way. And normally, 30 years later, 20 years later, they find out actually the parents were right in the first place, but they've had to go through all the disasters in rejecting parents' wisdom and knowledge to realise actually, yeah, I should have listened. Maybe that's what the Garden of Eden was about. Maybe humanity has come to this teenage stage where we're aware of our individual being, and we've rejected our parent, which is nature. Nature is our parent, and we've said, we know better than you, we're going to do it our way. This is where I think we're at the moment. So to understand health and how I'm going to define health, so I've kind of told you how I believe the universe was created, what creates the universe, how it creates. Now, we don't know where this primordial soup came from. Most people will invent a god just to fulfill that need from the mind. I can't disprove an exterior god, but also nobody's got the evidence to prove it. But from the point of that primordial soup and the emergence of a universe, it can all be explained by physics. Everything. So we come to the formation of the universe. Now, we want to know why our lives are a mess now, basically. So you have to look at the formation of a human being. That starts at a seed as well. And if you've seen the laboratory videos of the sperm going into the egg, isn't it funny that there's a spark? Has anyone seen that? Yeah? That changes the electromagnetic potential of the seed, the egg. Could it be that every human being is a new creation created the same way as the universe? A seed of potential that gets stimulated and then opens out. So the universe started with a big bang. Every seed starts with this stimulation of the potential. Every human being starts with a big bang, a new creation. Now what Patrick's saying, and I can't find anything anywhere on the internet that's saying this, is that every single human being from conception to say 10 to 12 weeks when the human form starts, goes through a rapid evolution of the whole universe. From the Big Bang right through, because you see the little seed, the seed, you see the fish form, you see the reptilian form, you see the monkey form, as it were, before the human form. It's a very big stage of evolution. And he believes, and I can only say it makes sense to me, that our junk DNA, the universe doesn't do junk. That's nonsensical thinking. Our junk DNA is what takes us from conception to about 10 to 12 weeks. Therefore, it's not needed anymore. It's got us to that form. It's took us through the whole creation of the universe to be a human being. So it's not junk, it's just discarded because it's not needed. And the rest of this 4 or 5%, whatever it is, DNA, is your human DNA, which is then used to form that individual human being. So at conception, you have the information from the mother, the information from the father that comes together and creates a new piece of information, shall we say, a unique human being that will have the qualities of the mother and the father mixed together. There'll be strengths and weaknesses there. That, could you say, what people call nature. We have nature and we have nurture. So at the point of conception, you're made. There's nothing you can do about that. You're formed, genetically you're formed, and that information will then start to form the new human being. Zero, you are what you are. Regardless of what you want to think you are what you are. Then we have what we call nurture, the formation of that being then. The being is made at conception, and especially when you get to the 10 to 12 week stage. Most abortions, spontaneous, happen just before that human form. Because the intelligence within the system has said, this new creation isn't going to make it. Not all seeds that you plant in the garden will flourish. That's just nature. Why would we be any different? Nature hasn't gone wrong in a spontaneous abortion. It's actually doing its job. This seed, for whatever reason, isn't going to make it. So we get rid of it before the human form takes place. It's quite intelligent. After that, then you've got the nurture. So the fetus then, the baby now, the human form, is feeding off the mother. But what is it feeding off? It's feeding off the energies of the mother. Why? Because this little baby that's been created, it's got certain information to survive in this world. It's all about survival. You have to survive. Your only goal is to survive. But this baby now is going to come into a world in the near future that it knows nothing about. It knows nothing about. It's got some basic structure and information to form it, but it's going to go into a world that it does nothing about. So it feeds off the emotions of the mother. It listens to everything and processes that to try and get, this is all on an unconscious level, not a conscious level, to try and get an idea of what world am I going into. So an example would be the mother's in a calm state, the baby picks up on that. There's an angry slam at the door at 5 o'clock. A big shout from a male voice. The mother's energy level changes to fear. This forming child will feed off that, right? This male voice, this slamming means I need to go into a fear level state and try to survive. Now, I'm not having an attack at many. I'm just using this as an example. Yeah, I'm just using it as an example. The baby's trying to figure out via the mother, what is this world I'm coming into. So the most important thing a woman can do, one is preconception, getting the best mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health to actually create a good seed. Then after that, everyone, oh, you need your folic acid, you need your vitamin C, you need that. The baby's not picking up on that. The baby's picking up in how are you feeling? What is this world I'm coming into? Yeah? The emotional state of the mother, which is dictated by the environment, the immediate environment. So a child is trying to figure out where it's coming into, all on an unconscious level. The child is born. Until about, should we say, 3 to 4 years, 3.5 years, all it does is absorb information from the environment. That should be done via the mother, because the mother is the only thing that little baby knows. It's got this energetic connection to the mother. It's the only security that child has. Now child, it's born. Yeah, we've gone to the birthing stage. In psychological terms, you might call this attachment theory. But basically, the baby is completely and utterly lost. Utterly lost. It needs the security of the only thing it's ever known for the first 3 or 4 years, and that is the mother. It will continue to feed energetically off the mother. We talk about, breast is best as regards physical food, but there will be emotional information going through that. What is the emotional state of the mother during breastfeeding? The child is still picking up on the emotional state of the mother and connecting it now to whatever's happening in the environment, because it needs to know how to survive an environment it knows nothing about. And again, this is all done on an unconscious level. What this does, it creates patterns and unconscious programs in the child, because we do not consciously respond to the environment. It's too much. You could never do it. It's impossible. It's all done on an unconscious level. And these patterns are part nature, what you inherit, and then nurture. Nature, you can do nothing about it. You can't change that. The nurture for the first 3.5 years, pretty much you can do nothing about that. Now, I just want to, before we go to the expansion of that formation, I just want to think for a minute about the explosion of what people are calling autism, whatever that means. For me, it means I do not like my environment and I cannot cope in this environment. What could be the factors on that? People are always saying, oh, it's vaccination, it's this and that. Could very well be. There has been proven, vaccination and episodes after that. Patrick talks about the amount of scans that are done during pregnancy. as though they're harmless. Well, there's an energetic interaction on a very, very delicate little baby. How can that? It has to have an effect because the universe is built on cause and effect. It has to have an effect. And you're not having one scan now. What, you're having 4, 5? Why? Oh, we need to fill our charts in. Does it change anything? No. Utter nonsense. Man-made ideas. But I want to leave that aside. I'm not saying that does exist. I want to leave it. The Romanian orphans, pretty much as far as I'm aware, they all came out autistic, what we would call autistic. They were unable to function in society. Traits of autism can be fight, flight, freeze. Yeah? I cannot cope with this environment. What happened with the Romanian orphans, many people give donations when this came out publicly. They got the bedding, they got the nutrition, they got clean buildings. They never got intimate affection. Yeah? They didn't have parents. They never got intimate. They had nothing to attach to at all. They had to make it up themselves and they were completely lost. They pretty much all, as I'm aware, all came out what we would call autistic. Nothing to do with your vitamins and your minerals and your lack of folic acid or whatever. It's a lack of security of a mother. In the world now, the sign of a good mother in the West is have your baby do 6 months breastfeeding and dump it in a nursery. You're a good mother. You're a working mother. For me, a mother is the most important job in the world. That is a job. You can't be a working mother. It doesn't make sense. Especially the first 4 years when that child is forming and the only thing it's ever known is its mother. The only connection to the world it's got is mother. So now it has to form its own opinion in the world. Or if it's in a schooling system, somebody else is going to now put the opinions of the world that will form that child, but they'll set that child up for the rest of its life. This formation will continue to about 7, absorbing, and then consciousness slightly starts to open up. Until we get, the teenage years when you become self-aware, shall we say, and then you reject everything and you want to go your own way. And then you get to about 30, for men 40 normally, to be honest, where you think, crikey, what an idiot I am. I've got it all wrong. I thought I knew what was good, but actually I should have listened to the people around me. So this formation is made. You've got your nature, you've got your nurture. Can't do anything about it, especially after the first few years. After that, information comes in, but you can kind of take it or leave it. Yeah? You're kind of growing enough to take or leave information and start to make up your own mind. The first 3 years you don't. You absorb it, you process it. This means that. An angry male voice means fear. That's it, it's done. It's hardwired, it creates a pattern, and that's the response. So I want to go to this little chart I've made here. So this chart you'll find in my medical despotism book. So me and Isabella made this chart up. So I think maybe a few of us might have heard, I think they called it the trivium in the esoteric world, is how we process information. The Biology of Belief, Bruce Lipton, is a great book. He'll express it in his way. But we all express things in different way. This is how I see it, how I visualize it in my mind. You might see it differently, but this is how I visualize it. So you're an independent being within your environment. Your environment is reality. Every billionth of a second, you're taking in masses of information from the environment, processing it and responding to it. Cause and effect. But this is, should we say, unconscious cause and effect. Because most of the information in our environment is too much. We're conscious of very, very little. So we have to process it and respond. And we do that via our nature and nurture, those first few years and how we're made. These are programs put in there to help us survive a world automatically because we can't consciously respond to it. Masses and masses of programs. Like I say, after you start growing up, you can start to choose your own program, shall we say, but your early ones you can't, they're there. But what happens, remember, the environment you're being brought up into is the perceived environment of the mother. There's an objective nature to it, but also that father who comes in might be a loving, caring father, but her relationship with him might be based on fear, and he might be a nice guy, but her perception of him might be fear. So those programs are really built, yeah, there might be some objective truth, but there's also a perceptual part to this. It's a perception. So it may not be an absolute truth. When you get older, you expand your environment. Like I say, with women, this might happen a bit younger. Men, in my experience, this happens when you're about 40. You start becoming conscious of your environment and start challenging a little bit how you're responding to it. So maybe that ingrained pattern of response that may have helped me survive at that point of time isn't an objective truth anymore. But I'm responding the same way because I can't do anything other than that. You can't change the meaning of the information from a young child. So the information comes in. It has to be processed based on your perception, your belief, your opinion of what that information means. That will create a feeling within inside you that could lead to a thought and then a response. So something happens, you feel angry. You may be conscious of a thought to, I'm going to punch that wall, I'm so angry. Or I'm going to throw the plate at the wall. Or I'm going to shout at that person. That's an ingrained pattern of behaviour from experience. But you have to then be conscious, say, is that pattern of behaviour serving me anymore? Is that justified, that behaviour? Maybe it's not anymore. Maybe I'm being triggered by something in my mother's history that is part of my history that doesn't apply to my wife or my friend or whoever anymore. Maybe it doesn't apply in this circumstance. I can't change how I feel about it because it's ingrained in my being. I might not even be able to change the thought. But if you stop and become conscious and breathe before the action, you can pause. You cannot punch the wall. You can stop that action. You cannot throw a plate at the wall. You cannot shout at anger. You can stop and pause and process it and evaluate that response now. Is that response just? Is it serving me? If it's not, you can stop the response and replace it with something else that is more beneficial and suited to that incoming information. Very difficult to change how you feel about it, especially if it's early information. Even how you think about it. But you can change your response when you're conscious of it. It's the only power you've got. What creates reality then? We're told our thoughts create reality. Going off my model, no. In the spiritual world, we're being told how we think creates our reality. That's quantum nonsense, if you ask me. The only thing that creates reality is your response to the information coming in. Your action creates reality. Yes, it is based on thoughts and based on feelings, but if them thoughts and feelings aren't compatible with how you would consciously now like to respond, you can change that. You can change reality, your response, your contribution to reality. You're not creating reality because reality exists outside of you. You're not creating your own reality. You're contributing to the objective reality with your action, not with your thoughts. It could be a thought if you allow your feelings and thoughts to dictate your actions. You're creating your own life and your contribution to your own reality with your response. The only thing you have power over, free will, shall we say, is your response if you're consciously aware of how you're behaving, which, this is my chart of how it works. So we have free will to not do something. You could say, as Rupert Sheldrake says, we don't have a free will, we have a free won't. We can choose not to do something. We cannot consciously choose to do something because our system's already decided to do it already on an unconscious level. But by becoming conscious, we can decide not to do something. That is a very, very quick understanding of how human behaviour works. A very, very quick. What time are we on?
10 to 5.
Right, so I want to connect that now to health, to the physical health, and then we can start to define health, because I want to leave plenty of time for if people want to ask questions. So you're in a state of balance between expansion and contraction. You're absorbing information from the environment all the time, which condenses your energy field. You have to respond to rebalance your energy field. Your responses are rebalancing, shall we say. You could say your breathing, your interaction with the environment is a breath. You could say the universe breathes. You could say we're breathing, our interaction with the universe, with everything, the environment is a breath. We take in information and we respond to it. We breathe it in and we breathe it out. Expansion again and contraction. Nothing escapes expansion and contraction. So you're in perfect balance, depending on your nature and how you were formed. Your balance is different to mine. So the idea, just the idea of a public health service for everyone is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's nonsensical. We all have a different... Yes, we're all human beings, and there are certain things that will create and form and hold that human being together, but our personal balance is completely different. Why this person has an imbalance that manifests a certain way, and why that done the same way could be completely different. The physical manifestation might be the same, but the imbalance might be different. So we have a balance in our body that keeps us, shall we say, healthy, for want of a better word. When our system is trying to bring in information and respond to it, and it's too much, there's too much pressure, we can't respond to that information, it gets held in. Now we've got an imbalance. There's too much pressure on the system. We can't respond as we, as an individual, need to respond. Now, a lot of people talk about the physical toxicity. I'm not denying this physical toxicity. Simply, I don't want to focus on that. You can have all the physical stuff, the crap in the water, the chemicals being sprayed on food, whatever, and your body will process that and hopefully eliminate it and rebalance. And there is a limit of what you physically can take regarding physical toxicity. Everybody will have an individual level that they can cope with. But most of that you can't avoid. The more relaxed your system is, the better you will cope with physical toxicity. Simple as that. If you're tense, how can you possibly process stuff? Yeah? In your stomach, we talk about processing food. What you're actually processing is life. Simple analogy. I've got a talk tonight. I've come here, I've had half a little lager because I've got butterflies in my stomach. My life experience is affecting my gut. So every time, oh, my gut's off, it must have been that curry I had last night or whatever. No, well, what are you worried about? What are you tense about? What is happening in your life that's making you uneasy? We know your experience will affect your physical body. In the ancient people, they had the chakra system. They understood all this. In the modern times, we have New German medicine, which is a very, very detailed investigation into what I would say is the old chakra system, how your emotions affect your physical body. And that analogy of I'm nervous, therefore my gut is off. Has nothing to do with what I've eaten or drinking. It's because, you know, you've got an exam, for example. This is why stress in exam positions for school is ridiculous. Kids can't think straight. They're under stress. So we need to maintain our balance. Our physical body does this every second of the day. We sweat, we have pores that get rid of stuff. We have our nasal passages, our breath, our toiletry functions. They're constantly eliminating physical stuff. A lot of that physical stuff is our own cellular waste. We know we have various bodies within our life. Cells are dying, and we have about 70, 80 trillion cells in our body. They're constantly dying off, going through their lifespan, being broken down and being flushed out. So we've constantly got waste in our body. And we get rid of that through these systems of breathing, going to the toilet. Your skin is the biggest detoxification, I won't say organ, you could say organ, in your body. Internally, it's your liver. Your body is constantly flushing out this waste. Yeah, we can add to this waste with chemical waste, with the food you eat, which just gets broken down into waste. But the main thing is cellular waste. So cellular waste is a normal part of life. If we didn't have these systems to flush it out, we'd clog up and basically wouldn't be able to function. So these things happen without, you could say we have a symptom of what we call illness. It just happens, you breathe in, you go to the toilet, you sweat in, whatever. What happens, so there's your healthy balance of input and output. Should we say you're in balance? What happens when the input of waste, so it could be your own cellular waste, or input from the environment, or that input, is beyond what you can get rid of? You get an imbalance. So physically, what could that mean? That could be congestion in the nose, that stuff's getting flushed out. You might go to the toilet more, you might start sweating. That's kind of a slight imbalance. I've got a little bit of a cold. When that goes a little bit more, what do we get? We get what we call an inflammation. Heat, pain, swelling and redness. That is an inflammation. What do we think an inflammation would be doing? Now, the medical profession will give you anti-inflammatories. Your body's gone wrong, we need to stop that. Heat, well, burning up stuff. Could we not burn up waste? Swelling, well, there'd be water going to that system, which helps clean. Plus, you've got the heat, which expands. So you've got heat, swelling, redness, pain. Well, pain isn't that a message to tell you there's an issue there, maybe you need to rest? Why do we call that an illness? Isn't that just an intelligent, acute healing crisis of the body? It's not an illness. Inflammation isn't an illness. If the tissue is deteriorated, we may get what they call an infection. What is an infection? It's an inflammation with bacteria. Right, what is it? Where does it come from? How does it function? So a bacteria is a known living organism in itself. We've got billions of them in our body. Where does it come from? The birthplace of bacteria is within the potential of the tissue. The tissue is now becoming diseased. It's beyond repair. The inflammation isn't working. There's parts of that tissue that is now beyond repair. For some reason beyond me, that tissue then creates, out of its potential, a very specific bacteria to feed on that own tissue that's not in good condition and it can't get rid of. That bacteria start eating that tissue. Because it's a live organism, you have bacterial toxins, which is basically the bacteria defecated in your body. That has to be flushed out. It's doing you a favour. It's breaking down your diseased tissue, breaking it down into smaller parts, feeding off it, cleans the area up. You get ill, you get a fever, you go to bed, you can't eat. A week later, all cleaned up, the bacteria disappear. Got nothing to feed on. It's called pleomorphism. Monomorphism is this bacteria is an individual entity that's coming to attack you. Pleomorphism means it's a changeable entity, part of a longer structure. Yeah, from a tiny little point of potential. Every time I cut my finger, or ask Isabella, bang my head on the car, I get a cut. I have no idea how a week later it's healed itself. I wipe it with a cloth, get the air to it, and it's cleaned up. I have no idea how that happens, but it happens. And it happens to every human being. So allopathy states the body is constantly going wrong. I claim the body never, ever, ever, ever goes wrong. It's always dealing with something that you don't understand because your conscious mind is pretty stupid. It's got ingrained patterns to know how to keep itself stable. Infections, inflammations are not illnesses. They're healing crises. Okay, the big one, a viral infection. I'm not going to go into the science. I've put recommendations here to the science, and we've got plenty of links to the science. Your body, when your cells are breaking down, they break down. They don't flush a full cell out. You have a lymphatic system. We do not have an immune system. That puts you in a state of fear. Oh, I'm immune. I need to be afraid of my environment. Well, there's nothing attacking you. Bacteria only feed off diseased tissue. And you don't catch them, even though they're in your environment, but they're not making you ill. You create your specific bacteria. Viruses. Well, the science is very clear. We've got grey blobs in cell cultures. That's it. And we built a story around that. Well, anyone can make up a story. I can draw a picture of a unicorn and try and convince you it exists in the real world. But I don't think you're going to believe me. The cells break down all the time. And they're so intelligent, they'll bag these little bits up as they're breaking down. If a cell is, should we say, under a lot of pressure, it might malfunction because it's under physical, mental toxicity. There may be genetic material, RNA, that's being produced that isn't making sense. It's like a typewriter has just gone like that. It can't be used because it's toxic. The cell is toxic. It'll try and push these bits of waste out of its cell. Then it'll go into the fluid and get drained out of the system. These bags can contain genetic information, but random bits, the nonsensical information. Just as you have a little bag of waste in your kitchen and a little bag of waste in your living room, and it goes into the bigger bag once a week outside, your cell does the same. It house clears. And then the bin man comes along once a week, once every fortnight now if you're lucky, and takes that away. Your environment's being cleared. Your cell cleans itself. It pushes these bags of waste genetic material out, and the system comes out and clears it all out. You may have a viral infection. What does that mean? It means you've got a fever, you're not well, you're ill, but we can't find a bacteria to blame. What is that? You're under so much pressure, the cells are not functioning properly. They're having a huge clear out now beyond your normal balance. It's just a clear out. You don't catch them. You can't give it another person. It's not an illness. It's an acute healing crisis. What happens when you interfere with that? So if you let's believe me for a moment and say acute illness is actually an acute healing crisis to cleanse your body. Just believe me for a moment. What happens when you stop that process? Yeah? What happens when you stop putting the rubbish bags out of the kitchen and you don't put it outside in the wheelie bin and the bin man doesn't come? Your house starts to get clogged up with waste. Things you can't move around as well. Nothing functions anymore until you've got a huge amount of waste and there's no way to live in there anymore. By suppressing acute healing crises, you're stopping the elimination. You've got rid of the symptom. Oh, I feel great. Yeah, but the waste's there and it's going to come back because the body will try again. It will try again. You suppress it again. The body's now gone from an acute healing crisis to now a chronic illness. What does that mean? It means it's doing a very, very low level in cleansing that will never reach balance because you're stopping it. It will never reach balance. It's doing, even a chronic illness, is the body still doing the best that it can under the circumstances. It hasn't gone wrong. It's clearing out, but you're not letting it. You're not going to bed when you're feeling tired. You're not fasting when you're not feeling off. You're not fasting when you have a fever. You're not taking time out. Isn't it funny that we live in a world controlled by debt and illusionary rules that we're not allowed to take a time out? You're not allowed. You need to be there. You need to do this. You need to do that. Your child needs 100% attendance, but he's ill. No, but he has to be in school. For their well-being. Really? Really? So now you've gone into acute healing. So if we go back, there's only two forces in the universe, expansion and contraction. When you have an acute healing crisis, you need to take the pressure off the system. Yeah? You need to rest and encourage the heat, encourage the fever. Go to bed. Don't try and cool the fever down. All right. Medical declaration. I am not giving medical advice, by the way. Let me say that here. I'm just telling you how to say it. And I'll tell you in a minute why I'm not giving medical advice. Encourage a fever. So acute healing crisis, allow the fever to take place and rest. Let them give into the system. Chronic means the body can't regain balance. You have to now interfere. You interfere with nature. Chronic pressure, tense, yeah? Tension. Chronic. How do you release tension? You put more pressure on it. You do the opposite. To release, you have a good physiotherapist and you're stiff. What do? It goes into the muscle. You go into the pressure. But now it's gone cold, yeah? Because we've got less movement. How do we stimulate a little bit more heat? Ice it. You can use ice because if you use ice limitedly, so maybe just 4 minutes, and take it off, you're not trying to create hypothermia, make it more cold. But if you put ice for say 4 minutes, take off, the body will respond to heat that area up. So you're creating heat within your chronic stiffness. You go into the stiffness, put more pressure on the stiffness to loosen it out. The response to more pressure is to relax. The response to the cold is to create more heat. You have to do this in balance. So why did this doctor go around the world and never seen chronic illness? He only seen acute healing crises because there was no suppressive medicine. People had an acute illness, they survived it or they died. When a lion gets mauled by a buffalo because he's failed in his attack, he goes under a bush for a week, 2 weeks, and he comes out ready to fight another day, or he dies, depending on the severity of the wound. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't have to think. He hasn't got a conscious mind. He gives in to the process. He doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't need a treatment. He doesn't ask for the lioness's opinion on osteopathy or minerals. He doesn't do anything. He just gives in to the whole process. Nobody knows how it happens, but it heals up. Or he dies. Death is a part of life. Can't avoid it. You may have an acute healing crisis that you can't cope with on a personal level. It happens. It happens. But by suppressing it, you're suppressing healing. You may take away the symptom and give some respite, but you're not making anyone well. Now, I'm not against any form of treatment because in this modern world, sometimes you need a little bit of respite from your suffering. You can use allopathic medicine, whether it be psychological or physical, to give you a little bit of respite to analyze your life to then go into healing mode. because it's going to hurt. To recover from deep chronic illness, whether it be mental, physical, it's not going to be easy. And if you need a little bit of symptomatic treatment to get yourself in a mind state to suffer and plan, how am I going to get through this? I'm all for that. I'm not against allopathy. Yeah? If you're having a mental breakdown and you cannot cope, but you want to cope, if you take some little drug that gives you a week, shall we say, of respite to talk to somebody and plan and prepare yourself for the suffering that you're going to go through. Because you are. You can't, once you get to chronic stage of health, you cannot get healthy without suffering. That's just how nature works. There's no magic bullet. And no one can cure you except you. There's nobody out there can cure you. So, again, why should you listen to me? Well, this is the legacy of allopathic medicine. I'm not even going to go into vaccination. So, this is England. A paper, Economic Analysis of the Prevalence and Clinical and Economic Burden of Medical Error in England, 2021, in the British Medical Journal, Quality and Safety. Per year, 237 million medication errors occur annually in England. 66 million are potentially clinically significant. 1,708 deaths are caused or contributed to by avoidable adverse drug events. Sheffield and Manchester University 2018, the EEPRU report. Medication errors may contribute to more than 22 to 20,000 deaths per year in England. 712 deaths caused by avoidable adverse drug reactions. 1,708, which confirms the other figure, deaths contributed by avoidable drug reactions. If you add on hospital-acquired infections, missed insulin, incorrect anticoagulant dose, missed heart failure medication, wrong asthma medication, we're talking about 25,000 deaths per year. This is just England. Also, 12,000 claims per year, or in this year of the study, 2018, per year of permanent disability. Now, the MHRA state 1 to 10% of adverse drug reactions, including vaccines, are only ever reported. We don't know the figure. Just because it's reported doesn't mean that it's a fact, but you have to investigate. But I'm just giving you official figures here, official reports. Go to America. Right, the 2023 Johns Hopkins Diagnostic Error Study in the BMJ Quality and Safety, the 17th of July 2023. 371,000 die and 424,000 are permanently disabled each year due to diagnostic errors. 75% regarding vascular events, infections and cancer, the main three. So you got 371,000 deaths and 424,000 die from diagnostic errors in the US. The Starfield report, which is quite a famous one, is the US really the best health in the world? In the JAMA 2000, 44 to 98,000 deaths from hospital medical errors, 106,000 deaths from non-error adverse drug reactions, 80,000 deaths hospital-acquired infections, 12,000 deaths unnecessary surgery, 250,000 to 300,000 deaths per year. Right, these studies I've checked do not overlap. So what do we have? These are separate studies with separate criteria. Approximately 500 to 650,000 deaths per year from all forms of medical harm in the US. Vaccines are not part of this data. Since 1955, the worldwide vaccination program has paid out 6 billion in damages, and we know from official sources this is 1 to 10%, which means we don't know. We have no idea. This is a tip of a big iceberg, a very big iceberg. So now I will tell you, I do not give medical advice. If you're ill, please go and see your doctor. Yeah? Please go and see your doctor, as they are the experts, allegedly, in this system. What I will tell you, if you get run over by a bus, if you're a farmer and you have an accident with your tractor, please go to A&E. Yeah? Medical science is brilliant at A&E. I would not say a bad word about it. The problem is, everything has become an emergency now. Your child has chickenpox, it's an emergency. Your child's got a cold and a bit of a fever, it could be an emergency. It could be meningitis, it could be sepsis. Everything's defined as an emergency. If everything's defined as an emergency, especially with treatment, with children, what does it mean? It needs to be treated. What if that emergency is just a simple healing crisis and you're constantly treating it? You're creating unhealthy people. You're creating a permanent market for drugs. A permanent market for drugs. But what if every time I cut my finger or bang my head on the car door, as I always do, and it cut, and it heals itself? Why does the lion go under a bush after being gorged by a buffalo and it just lies there? It doesn't even eat a drink. It heals. What if, apart from real accident and emergency, the body's self-healing? We don't even need our supplements. We don't even need our diets. Just go to bed. Suffer for a little while. Take away the stresses of your life. Because the biggest toxin coming into your system is how you perceive the world around you and how you perceive the people around you. If you go back to my chart and look at reality, reality is all around you. There's very little you can do to change reality, very little. You can maybe change your job, maybe avoid a few friends. If you're lucky, you might be able to change where you live, even change the climate you live in. But it's very limited. So the only power that you've got is how you perceive that environment. You can choose to perceive your environment however you want. That is more beneficial to you. And therefore you're contributing more positively to the collective experience of humanity. It's a collective experience. When all our responses are in line with how we are, and shall we say moral. So what does morality mean? Morality is quite clear in nature. It's cause and effect. You have a certain way to function. You go outside of that, there's a negative, what we call a negative effect, pain. It's cause and effect. Human behavior is no different. What is morality? Well, I'm a unique seed in the universe. I need to express myself because of how I'm made. But I can't impose my expression on somebody else because they have a natural right to express themselves. But we have to find common sense ways to... There's always going to be friction. But we have to accept my expression shouldn't interfere with somebody else's expression. We shouldn't impose our will on somebody else. It's not a perfect system because we're all so diverse. Animals and ants and lions don't typically have to worry about that. We do, because we're so diverse. Our consciousness, our seed, our development is so diverse. We need to find ways to respond to life without taking away the other person's free will to respond to life. That will create balance. The main toxicity in our life is our failure to be able to respond to life. We do that, cause and effect. What is the effect? I don't like that. All right, how are you contributing to that cause? What is your contribution to that cause? Oh, but this person, okay, can you avoid him? Yeah, avoid him. Why are you allowing that? All right, there are genuine victims in this world. There are genuine victims of violence and abuse in this world. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how are you contributing to the effects that are happening in your life. Yeah, self-empowerment, take responsibility. I don't like that effect. All right, I need to change my behavior now. I need to change my behavior. It's the effect that we need to focus on. What is the other main pressure in life? You have the geographical map of the world. You have the political map of the world. The geographical map is objective reality where we live. It's the laws of nature that apply to everybody, regardless of what your dumb conscious mind thinks. You are subject to the laws of nature. You cannot escape it. The political map, nobody knows what the laws are. They're different in every part of the world, depending on what dictator wants to tell you what to do. It's an illusion. If these laws were brought in by wise people to guide us like wise parents, wouldn't cause a problem, but they're not. We can't change that because too many in the collective is accepting that as a reality. We can start to disconnect. The first way you disconnect is to realize it's an illusion. It's not real. No matter what anybody, oh, it's the law. What law? Oh, who is another man? As another man has a right over my life? No. Nature doesn't say that. Gravity is a law. If I walk off this roof, I don't know what gravity is, but I'm going to feel its force at the bottom of it. That's a law. What anybody says in this illusionary world isn't a law. But, and this is another but, and this is what me and Patrick have been working on. So if you go to Patrick's information there, if anyone wants to contact Patrick, I'll put the information there. He's created a new website called the Quantics Society. Now, people have asked me why, if I want to become a member, do I have to send me driving license or passport? It's an official, legally, in this world, registered community. It's got legal status because this legal word doesn't accept your natural status. It doesn't accept it. So he's created a community and he's put a constitution, if you like, of how the community is supposed to live. You don't have to become a member to take on that information and take them values on. If you want to, you can. Get more information off Patrick on the link. He is at the moment forming a free health course. What it entails, I don't know at the moment. But anyone who wants to get information on the free health course can contact Patrick. Maybe it's for members or maybe it's for just anyone who's interested. But anyway, you've got the health seminar with Patrick from 2 years ago on the channel, and you've got the 13 conversations all there for free. So all life is about you as an individual knowing who you are, how you were made, and maintaining your balance until you've got no more energy and you die. Because no matter what you do, no matter if you have that drop of whiskey, if you have that coffee that they tell me is bad for me, if I have that burger or that pizza, you're going to die. None of it's going to save your life. Your organic food isn't going to save your life. Your clean water isn't going to save your life. What's important with food is your relationship to the environment, which food is a part. If you're going to have a chocolate cream cake, bloody enjoy it and don't feel guilty. If you're going to have a beer, enjoy it. Oh, there might be a physical bit of toxicity, but you're going to die anyway. It's not going to save your life. Your job is to find out who you are and express you are so evolution can continue. The evolution, I believe, of consciousness. The universe through us is becoming conscious of itself, of its creation. We're at a stage where I call it the evolution of being less stupid. So let's be honest with ourselves, myself including, we're all morons because we're all evolutionary teenagers. We all think we know better than nature, and that's what's got us in this mess in the first place. So I think we all have to accept how stupid we are, not so that we become wise, so that we can try every day to become less stupid. And then we'll have less destructive effects in the world with our responses to the world. We maybe get a little bit more positive effects in the world, but you have to accept where you are in this evolutionary stage, which is a very juvenile stage. And your job is to find out who you are, express who you are, but not interfere, which is difficult, with somebody else's expression. I'm going to leave it there, unless anyone's got anything to say. So I said, I'm not a politician. I might not be able to answer questions, but I'm open to anything.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rob. That was brilliant talk. Do you think there's any case at all to take antibiotics?
So you have to go back again to what is an infection. It's a healing crisis where the bacteria are breaking down waste. Now, obviously, the more waste, the more toxicity that the bacteria are going to create, bacterial toxins. If you have what should we call a local inflammation or a general inflammation, an infection, and routinely in your life you go to bed fast, drink some warm lemon water, allow that process to clear out, you will constantly be rebalancing. Yeah? Okay, no problem. What happens if you're constantly taking antibiotics? By the time you're 50, 60, 70, you've got so much waste built up in your system that the infection will now kill you. Because the body can only try its best to clear out. But now, instead of this little bit of waste, it's got a mountain of waste. Now, Trevor Gunn, I was lucky to study with Trevor Gunn in the holistic pathology course. And he stated, if you look to, say, world wars where we had open wounds, sepsis, should we say, there's no evidence to suggest interfering with sepsis with antibiotics or allowing the process to take place has improved the death rate. Some people can die from infections. It can overwhelm them. That's life. Yeah? It's life. Some infections are unavoidable. Say a woman's had a miscarriage. There might be some debris left. That's now going to have access to the blood. Could be sepsis, yeah? Because that little fragment of the fetus is now being infected, yeah? It's being broken down because the body can't get rid of it. It starts feeding on it, but it's in an area where it's got access to the blood. But it's still a healing process. Yes, some people can die from a healing crisis, and it will always happen. Everyone has to make their own personal decision. Do you want to go through that in, say, should we say, sepsis? Or do you want to stop that process, but worry about the consequences later? That's not for me to decide. That's everyone has to make their own decision. But based on what Trevor Gunn says, there's no clear evidence that taking antibiotics has improved the death rate than riding it. If you go back to Nature Cure, Henry Lindlar, written in 1914, they used to have what they call sanitariums there. People with deep illnesses, should we say deep illnesses in the system, they'd go into these places of relaxation, they'd eat very simple foods, fast, they'd get into the sunlight, they'd be taught how to relax and go through a process. It's not for me to tell anyone what to do, because we're all potentially going to die from an acute healing crisis. It's everyone's situation, but you have to understand that the infection is the body doing its best under the circumstances to bring back balance. If you're constantly giving antibiotics, why do you get a chest infection? Oh, cleared up, I'm fine. 2 months later, you've got it again. Because you never dealt with the problem. Oh, I take some more antibiotics. 6 months later, you've got it again. Never dealt with the problem. Building up, and now you're even worse. When I first read Trevor Gunn's book, I used to get what you would call flu, about every 18 months. And you know, trying to stick it on and take painkillers and work through it. And it'd get to the point where I was forced to go to bed because I couldn't even move. I read Trevor Gunn's book and I thought, this is nonsense. My body's telling me it's under too much pressure. From that point, I got the flu probably less than a year after reading Trevor's book. I went to bed for 4 days in massive pain, didn't take any painkillers, had lemon water and I think a little bit of soup, and it was fine. But a year later I had the same. I've never had it since, and that was 15 years ago. Whenever I'm now, this is where conscious awareness comes in. When I'm consciously aware that my life's under pressure, my body will give me a sign of tiredness, a cold, or coming on what we call a cold. You can nip that in the bud by spending a day in bed, fasting, drinking some warm lemon juice, switching off, put a comedy on, never watch the news, never ever watch the news. You're stopping that process and allowing the healing. If you allow acute healing crisis in your life, you're never going to get to those other stages. Henry Lindlar's friend who went around the world, he never found it in tribal people because they went through the healing crisis and they lived or they died. You would normally live depending on what crisis you can individually take. So I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just saying, yeah, an antibiotic can stop the process and give you respite, but it hasn't dealt with the problem. You can take an antibiotic if you feel scared, but just be conscious of the fact that you haven't solved the problem. The problem's still there. So maybe it'd be wise to maybe change your lifestyle, look at the pressures and maybe fast for a long period after to go back to that problem. That's why I'm not against allopathic medicine, because sometimes people need a respite and allopathic can give you that respite, but you have to be conscious of what it's doing and then go back to it with a different mindset, if that helps. Yeah.
You're first.
Just a bit of a mischief, really. So what explains the annihilation of so many indigenous populations around the world?
So we're told that the conquerors took smallpox on the blankets. And imagine a unicorn story, shall we say? Yeah, it's a unicorn story. So you have a balance, especially indigenous people who have had quite a fixed balance for a long period of time, generations upon generations. You now come in and conquest, you totally annihilate that balance to the point, and you're oppressing as well. It's a toxic now balance. That's it. You've created a toxic imbalance. No need for imaginary unicorns to explain it. The same in the Amazon. In the Amazon, I'm fortunate enough to live in the Peruvian Amazon. Malaria, shall we say, can be popular in places that are becoming a bit modernized. So what is malaria? Trevor Gunn told me this many years ago. Clean blood, clean liver, no malaria. What do malaria feed off? Dirty water. What are they seeking when they jump onto you? What are they sensing? Dirty water. You're already ill. You're already ill. If you've got no dirty water, there's nothing to feed off. Yeah? This is why the focus should always, always be on health. Never on avoiding illness, because there's nothing out there you need to avoid if you're healthy. Always focus on the health. Always. Anything else?
Can I go back to the Romanian orphans?
Yeah.
Is it possible, do you think, obviously we get to a stage where we're conscious and we can make a decision about certain things. Do you think you can reprogram the process in your own self earlier than that? I don't mean earlier in your own personal time, but once you've discovered, if you were brought up, say, in a fearful family with violence and no contact with a mother or father, really, just in the same house, and you've got those responses, can you reprogram yourself without a consciousness?
Not without being conscious of it, no.
So you've got to go,
it's an unconscious pattern.
So you've got to be a bit older to understand and then reprogram.
Yeah. This is why people who say have been abused or whatever, maybe they'll go through a dramatic teenage, 20s, whatever, until they can start to process stuff. You need to be a little bit mature to start to process stuff. You can consciously interfere with your response, but you can't change the past.
It's a conscious process. You can't reprogram further back. I mean, how can I put this? I mean, what I'm...
You can't reprogram the past. It's happened.
I'm just wondering...
Especially them first 3 years.
What about things like hypnotism? Does that have any effect on the experience that you've had very early?
Nothing can affect the first early years of life. You're made. You're made, and the first 3 years you formed.
Yeah.
You can go into that, yeah, and become aware of that, and change the meaning of it.
So it is conscious.
Yeah, you have to be conscious. You can see yourself as a victim of your abuse as a child, yeah, which you are. Let's be honest. A child is innocent. But when you come older, this is why Patrick says the event is not the trauma. The trauma exists within the mind of the person. Regardless of the event, the abuse was never the trauma. It's just an event. It's neutral. The event happens in the mind of the person, regardless of how horrific it is, because different people are affected by the same trauma. So the event happens here. Go back to the processing. If you look at the chart, a child is traumatized and abused. It, in some way, unconsciously knows this is wrong, but it can't escape it. When you have food coming in your system, you take the information out, you break it down, and you get rid of it. Trauma is an event that hasn't been processed and got rid of. It's there. You can't change that event, but you can go into it, change its meaning. You can consciously decide, I'm not going to be a victim anymore. Or you can choose to be a victim. You can't change the event. I'm sorry, there's horrific things happen in the world. But you can't change the event. You can go into it. Can even take something positive out of it. When we take on food, forget the physical stuff. We're trying to take on information from our environment. Nurturing information from the environment. It's not the physical stuff, it's information. Can a woman who's been in an abusive relationship or abused as a child grow up, continue to be a victim, or say, do you know what? That will never happen to my child. Never in a million years is any man going to treat me and my child like that. You're taking something positive out of a horrific event that you can never change. You can never change it. But you can take a positive action out of it. You can maybe choose to help others because you can be compassionate in that. I could never understand that. I don't know what an event means to somebody. Events mean different to different people. But you can become conscious. You can choose not to be a victim. You can process it. Say, what can I get, no matter how horrific, what can I get that gives me a positive future in life, and let it go. Where you can do that, what I say to people, you can go into an empty field, no farmers around, go in there with the mindset, wherever your trauma is, to scream it out. Might get a few funny looks off the cows, but that doesn't matter, they're not bothered. Let it out, but make that conscious decision to leave it in the field. Don't take it with you. I'm not saying this is easy, by the way. You know what I mean? Some people have been through horrific stuff. But there are people who have been abused who then go on to counsel people who have been abused. That's a positive thing. Can't change the past, but you can change how the past affects your future. Yeah.
Can I mention about the Romanian thing? After, when that all collapsed out there, a lot of us went out and took aid out there. We went into the orphanage, and it was quite horrific. I filmed a lot of it over a period of about 3 years. And it's how they were treated, right? They were abandoned by the parents for loads of different reasons. And there was no interaction within these places. The child would be standing up in the bed in its own faces, or unhappy with it, never changed. And all it was doing all day was catch all the cots they were in and just rock. That's all they were doing, rocking all the time. It was quite horrific.
Well, they've got no security there, no mother, no guidance, no nothing.
No, there was nothing. autism, most of them had autism because of that. I can back
So,
it up.
so when a child at that age hasn't got guidance in the world, it has to go on its own. It's got no other option. And that can happen even with a mother present, because she might not be emotionally present.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah? So the children has to go on their own.
Well, the government were so ashamed of what happened, they eventually they gave the gypsies, the Romanis, to run these places. And all they were doing was, when we were taking aid out, we stopped in the end, because they were taking the aid, selling it on the black markets, and making fortunes for themselves, and nothing but the kids.
So there's nothing, autism is what we call that. It's not a defect, it's a coping mechanism.
Coping, yeah.
That's all it is, it's a coping mechanism.
This there,
Everything we do is to survive the best we can. There's no such thing as creating a brilliant environment for a baby. They're not interested if you live in the Hollywood Hills or in the slums of Delhi. They're not interested. It doesn't mean anything to a baby. What a baby wants is its mother's chest. That is it. The environment is irrelevant. These people who are from Hollywood are going to poor countries to bring back babies. They have no idea what they're doing. Oh, look, we've got all this stuff. What bloody stuff? They want emotional contact. That's it. They're not interested in your stuff. That's all they want. There is no good or bad environment. There's environment, the good, should we say, environment is where you have the security of your mother and then the backing up of the father. That's it. As you grow older, you start to judge the world. Oh, we're a bit poor, they're a bit rich. That's all nonsense. All irrelevant stuff.
well, the last time we went, we didn't go again because they were stopping us from going in, and we demanded to go and see all the children. They wouldn't allow us in because they were taking over and they were profiting from it. So we stopped after that. They didn't get any more aid after that. Terrible.
Anyone else got anything?
Rob, do you think it's useful for people? You talk about the emotions of the mother during pregnancy. You know, as you say, this is kind of quite well known.
Yeah, we've done that before.
Kind of attachment stuff. But do you think it's useful for people later in their lives to maybe know things that they didn't, that they can't possibly remember, that might have got them into patterns of behaviour? So,
What would be an example?
Or into ill health. So, for instance, I was talking recently to my sister who is diagnosed with bowel cancer, and she was talking about what she thinks happens during my mother's pregnancy with her and the first year or so, but none of us know. And is it useful if you still have contact with that?
I mean, what's interesting is
this information.
the gut digests life. Yeah. So I would say there's an issue with digesting the life. Do you need to know?
I don't know. I suppose
No, it's a rhetorical question, I'd say.
Yeah, asking about her in particular. But if you know something about someone's life in the pregnancy or in the first couple of years, that later in their life, or that you notice patterns of behaviour might be associated with that, do you think it might be helpful for them to know those things if they can know it?
You can only give information to people if they're open to it for a start.
Yeah.
On getting to know yourself definitely helps, because you need to know how you're responding and what your patterns are. But your life doesn't go back, it only goes forward. If you feel that you've been a victim in the past or whatever, you can go into that and process if you want, or you can just go into a field and swear as many bad words as you want and get it out and say, my life starts now. Don't care about the past. Am I acting this way because my mother was under pressure? Was she in a bad relationship? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, doesn't matter. If you feel the need to do that, you can go into that if that helps you. But your life goes forward, it never goes back. Conscious minds take it forward. The animal, when the gazelle's attacked by the lion, it escapes, it goes under a bush, relaxes, danger's gone. Right, I shouldn't, not consciously, but it'll know, maybe that time of day, that watering hole, not a good idea, and it just gets on with its life. When we take on animals, and I can speak from experience with dogs that have been traumatized, most human beings continue the trauma of the dog by feeling sorry for it. The dog gets fearfully angry when a man comes, and oh yeah, it's okay, it's okay. No, it isn't okay. You're in a new environment now. That environment has gone. By saying to the dog that's being aggressive to this stranger, it's okay, you're holding the dog in the trauma. And they bite people, and I know that from experience. When you say to a dog, in your own, by your behaviour and your leadership, this is how we do it here now. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm in control. The trauma's gone. It's finished. So we have trouble with our conscious minds because we're constantly processing. We don't know why. If you feel the need to go why, you can go back. But it's an individual thing, isn't it? You don't have to. Yeah.
Sounds like what you're saying is start now.
Yeah. If you choose that way. If you feel the need to go back, that's fine. We've all got interesting questions about ourselves, don't we?
If you speak it to like stomach upsets, or like say norovirus, or I've got a bug or whatever, what would you say that?
Well, if we take the unicorns out of the equation,
Yeah.
your stomach digests your life. Your food gets come in, should we say, a natural environment. Why would you want local, unmolested food? Because it's giving you information, especially in a seasonal environment, about what's happening in the environment, which then tells your body how it should function. You can say, oh, I take my berries in autumn because I've got my vitamin C. Well, vitamin is a man-made concept. You can also say that those berries at that time of the year are telling my body winter's coming. It's an informational exchange. Unless food poisoning exists, yeah? If you're going to eat rotten food, it does exist. But that's not very often. Again, you digest in your life all the time, and we know that because we get butterflies in our stomach. We get nervous. So unless you can put your off stomach to a very specific bit of definite food poisoning, then I would say just ask yourself, what in your life are you struggling to digest and let go? Or what are you holding on to? Because you have diarrhea and you have constipation. What am I struggling to let go or not digesting properly? So it all comes down to the energetic things in life. The physicals, yeah, are there, but very small part of life.
They always say the gut is the second brain, don't they?
Yeah.
So,
It digests your life. And we have chakras that digest specific bits of information. And like I said, New German medicine has made this into a kind of a science.
Louise Hay was doing this way back in the 70s and 80s. She's American, she's died now, but that's where I first got in touch with. I've got a headache. What's the headache actually about?
Yeah.
I've got a backache. Okay, so what's going on that's causing it? In my life.
Yeah.
And
Pressure. Headache is pressure.
yeah, exactly.
Simple pressure.
Yeah.
Pain is pressure. So I need to release the pressure.
Yeah. So if you can identify what's actually causing it in your life, in your own personal life, in a way that's the answer.
Yeah.
I agree with you about the if you need to take a painkiller pardon me, for a short period of time, then that works to get you to the stage where you can...
And don't feel guilty though you let nature down. I'll give you an example. I pulled a muscle in my back about 10 years ago. Do you know when you have run pulls where no matter what position you get, you can't sleep because it's so painful? And I thought, if I can get through this one night and the pain lowers, I might be... Because all I needed to get well was to sleep for a couple of days. But the pain, do you know when you can't get any position to sleep? So I took one paracetamol just to take the edge off it. Just to get a little bit of sleep. And then the pain just subsided enough so that the next night I could sleep through the pain. What's wrong with that? I haven't let nature down. I've used allopathy to my benefit, but I was consciously aware of what I was doing. I knew what I was doing. I knew I wasn't solving a problem. I had a pathway. I had a plan of action.
Rob, how can we look at an inflamed appendix being taken out so easily when that happens? I had it done 4 weeks ago.
I mean, the medical profession, again, seeing inflammation as a problem and not a solution as the problem. So they'll attack it, take everything out.
It can burst
Yeah.
out quickly.
Yeah. So that's a medical solution. So an inflammation is a healing crisis. Then why is it in crisis? If your liver's inflamed, well, your liver pushes out toxicity. What is the toxicity in your body, in your life?
That was quite a scary one. Like excruciating pain. I didn't even know it was an appendix.
But your physical being is a manifestation of your energetic being. And there's a million different ways that can manifest. If you focus on your energetic being, the physical being will manifest that. And when you are in pain, that's a signal to start going back to your energetic being. This isn't...
Which is
so.
what happened afterwards, actually.
Yeah, so I'll give you my definition of health now. It's nothing to do with being pain-free. It's nothing to do with not ever having a cough or a cold or a fever or an infection. It's nothing to do with that. It's me finding out who I am, this seed that is unfolding, like the universe is unfolding, like everything's unfolding, but I'm a unique seed that's unfolding in this short lifespan. Find out where it wants to go, not where my stupid conscious mind thinks it wants to go, and express myself without interfering with other people's expression. If that, my version of health, manifests in pain now and again, that's perfectly fine. It's just a readjustment I need to make. It's where does my life want to go, not where do I think my life wants to go. And only you have the answer to that. I have no idea. How can I possibly give health advice? Except to myself, and even then, I've got to be very careful that this stupid thing up here gets in the way. So how can we possibly give health advice? The only thing what Patrick's been doing to years is see how human beings are formed. We're all formed by nature the same way, but we're individuals. So Patrick cannot cure anyone. He's just got enough work about his own life balance. He can give information to help you sort out your own life balance. But nobody is a cure for anybody, and there's no exterior cure to your energetic life imbalance. Whether it's a naturopath or a homeopath or an osteopath. Homeopaths can give you a message to highlight to your system, but are you open to receive that message? That's you. It's not the homeopath, that's you. So you might have a really good homeopath who knows what message you want, but if you're not open to that message, it's not the homeopath's fault. It's us, healing happens within.
So it does come down to really retune to ourselves in a completely different way.
Yeah, it's completely personal,
Yeah.
completely personal. And I can't give how can I give anybody advice? Because I don't know who anybody is. I'm struggling to know who I am.
And that would go for what we ingest as well, because what might be okay for your body might not be okay for mine.
We all have different tolerances. We all have different tolerances. Some people can take, say, the DDT that they spray in the villages for malaria, which is a toxin. Some people it might not affect them. Some people it might severely affect them. That's your nature. That's your nature. We all have limits. I know some spiritual people think we're unlimited beings. Well, we all die, so I don't think we're unlimited beings. We all have limitations, and there are human limitations that affect all of us, gravity, whatever, but they're individual tolerances, shall we say. And so it's up to you to find out what chemical, what information in my environment is reaching my limit. And we're all different. All of us, yeah. Right, if that's it, if anybody wants to support mine and Patrick's works, obviously you can buy a book. There's a few freebies there. But any money from the books today will go to mine and Patrick's work. I'm not 100% sure of the information of this free health course, because it's not done yet, but you can contact Patrick on the information leaflet and just ask him what it's all about. I'm not going to really speak for him, but the only thing I can say is He's probably lost a few £1 million walking out of his profession, and now he's a peasant farmer on a pension in Spain, whose only passion is to get all this information out of his brain and give it to people. And what people do with it is up to them. Yeah?
I can recommend Quantix.
Yeah.
And all the
We have to find a way to live in harmony, because it is actually natural to create a society. But this global society we're in is a dictatorship that doesn't allow individuals to come together and create their own constitutions. So we need to find ways of not fighting the system. The more of us retreat from it, like the Amish, shall we say, for example. Great example. You don't have to be their religious faith to think, you know, they've got a good thing going there. But they're still American citizens, but they've got their own community. Anything else, or are we done? That means it's time for a beer. Okay.